Anyway, hey, welcome everybody. This is Brian Murray, Truth. Just wanted to chime in on the Vegas shooting. Here again, I try not to get too involved in a subject without a lot of direct info, and it's really very, very early to be starting any type of real forensic or anything like that, because essentially you're making bad decisions. Well, first of all, it's based on what's coming out of the media, and it's coming out of the government or the local government and the police force. And honestly, they haven't got their information figured out enough. I would say that you could really start to base a case. It's been weeks, 2 weeks maybe. It is always nice to get a jump on these things, and it's always nice to put your intent into it and try to discover what's wrong about it and try to ascertain whether it was humanly possible, whether it was conceivable, whether the person involved could possibly have had an intent or a desire to really want to hurt somebody or hurt many people. Generally, it seems like when people have a gripe, and of course it's a terrible assumption, but for the most part it would be with the governments of the world. Terrible assumption. But anyway, so to have this lone gunman show up, pre-plot, and injure 500 people, hurt all these people, kill something to the tune of 59 people. It's inconceivable to most people. Why? Why would you do that? It's not a political event. It's not a religious event. So, when you get down to the brass tacks of it all, it's really not easy for people to wrap their heads around as to why that's even happening. Now, Montegraph today brought up an awesome point. Well, about silent helicopters, let's say. A lot of people were hit, and I'm not saying nobody was hit. I wasn't there. People were probably definitely hit with bullets. The crisis actors who are doing interviews were probably not hit with bullets. So, the reason I don't get involved and the reason I don't put a lot of thought into these things is because that's really about fear. So you don't want to be afraid. You don't want to go down that road of feeling like we're under attack. Humanity has always been under attack from the forces of evil, or whatever you want to, the term you want to place on the adversaries of your existence who draw you into making bad decisions and draw you into living a poor life and not helping your brothers and sisters and not helping your fellow mankind. And so it's very hard to decide that this man, by all counts, seemed to live a pretty good life, albeit he was rich and a gambler. So not the greatest of lives. But why wouldn't he have attacked gamblers? Speaks of a lot of foresight to think of a concert that you're going to attack. And so it is conceivable that he knew someone in the band or the production company, but otherwise he would have no personal attachment to those people. And therefore, very hard to conceive that he's got the emotional ability to do that. But however, Vegas is a little bit of a little Egypt, so perhaps the black magic is working, and this was a bit of a ritual sacrifice. It's tough to say. I mean, that evidence does seem to surround us, all the conspiracies that we love and enjoy and embrace. There does seem to be quite a bit of Satanism, a bit of dark intent behind it all. But if you look biblically, the story of everybody's redemption hinges on the idea that everything in the world is screwed up, especially, I guess you would say, in the end days, as we all seem to believe that we are in. And then so there'd be a certain point where, you know, the energy of the bad would be so bad that you would have to assume you're in the end days. The fulfillment is there. Everybody is seeing the same bad things. However, that means everybody's participating in the same bad things. And so, is it any wonder that things like Vegas could happen, even if that was not a real deal? Sadly, we live a TV life, and so everything we get from television is, well, I mean, it's always contorted and distorted and distracting, and it's entertainment. I've never really seen the word truth on television. If that's what they claim, or if that's an assumption we all place on television. See my wound from this afternoon's gardening adventure. So, but Vegas, it's the Sin City. We call it Sin City. And it's what did I say? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But ultimately, it spills over into morality. And I'm thinking, to myself that essentially humanity has been pretty good. The people I'm around are very good. They're, aside from discontentment from the government, which they perceive, but they have no desire to even change it. Or, they just hope for the best and hope they can play along with the system. There are very few people who hope they can change the system, that it will actually function correctly. These are some of the fundamental issues that we deal with, really. The lack of constitutional protection that is guaranteed us. The edging away and the scraping away and the killing of our Constitution. I mean, everybody feels it intrinsically, if only a few of us in the community of aware people have come upon the idea that you're no longer protected. We're in an enemy state. The governments of the world have united against the populace of the people, possibly for population reasons, possibly just to keep their separation because they are uber elite. I believe that, ultimately these people have kept a sense of eliteness and wealth and privilege and things of that nature for years on end, possibly thousands of years. And the only thing that really probably happened from that is that they slaved us out to make their technology possible through the black arts, and then now they're looking to kill us off now that this technology is here for them. They have their bunkers. We've slaved for them. We built them underground safety zones and bunkers fully powered by nuclear power, able to sustain life, packed with food, packed with monetary money for if they ever want to come out of the hole, and start it again. Because of Agenda 21, which is apocryphal, it could be a fake document as well. But the concept was never far on the hounds of hell, on the heels of humanity, because there's always going to be people in those power positions who want to make sure people can't get the power. So they plot ahead, they have this time and these engineers and things, and they've been plotting our demise. Plus, I also believe that these Satanists who are in power, they really almost believe in biblical prophecy more than some of the people who are involved in the religion. And yet they're in a rush, and so they're willing to race this along faster than it was supposed to go. Their position is to just push us towards Armageddon. They are so tired of reality that they would love nothing more than reality to go away. They find no happiness here. And that's a sad thing, because I don't really find a lot of disappointment in my life. Pretty peaceful, pretty happy. I don't live in the city, however, but that's not an accident. You have to seek a modicum, as they say, of solitude if you choose to keep somewhat of a peace of mind. And so, when it comes to the Vegas thing, the thing that came to mind after Montegraph said the helicopters was The Running Man, the movie The Running Man. And a man is framed for a murder so he can be on a television show. What else would you do with television and monitoring systems and an ability to sit in an armchair and direct people like the Truman Show or whatever it is? Push them off so they can react to situations. I mean, they show you in movies, the Mockingjay or the Catching Fire, whatever that series is, that's completely a life of controlled beings viewed from an elite people who live an entirely different lifestyle. It's implied in 1984, but you're never given a glimpse of what that real other lifestyle would be. But I do think it hinges back to the fact that a lot of these beings really fear death, so mortality. And Jesus Christ defeated death. And that was his gift to us. They don't believe it. They just don't even get it. They're the other people who were lost and they need our help, in other words. So they were lost and they don't get it, and ultimately, being children of God, all of us, they deserve it. Because Jesus being the Word and the Ten Commandments being the law, Jesus was that understanding you were supposed to have to get, to be comfortable, not get comfortable, but to be comfortable in reality. Because if you understood the nature of Jesus Christ, you'd understand the nature of who everybody is around you. God is the Alpha and the Omega. And as I want to say, Jesus is before the beginning, in the middle, and after the end. So you decide where you are in that formula. But ultimately, the news that you catch is always going to be negative, or nearly negative, or mildly positive, seductively positive. But this life is a strong delusion. They say biblically that we'll have a strong delusion. Well, what is sitting around doing nothing, paying rent, just being alive, kind of poking through, questioning your morality, questioning your faith, wondering if we'll ever go towards the truth a little further. Humanity may not be ready for that. And so you have to decide. But it would not surprise me if that a thing like Las Vegas was just kind of a nonsense, a distraction. I don't know. Someone just today posted something about Australia having a giant lake open up. There's always going to be a profound new mystery, like the Baltic Sea anomaly, or hollow Earth, or a hole in the poles, flat Earth. How many conspiracies could I name in a minute? JFK's murder, his brother's murder, the Bohemian Grove, Skull and Bones, Henry Kissinger, chemtrails, geoengineering, Michelle Obama's a man. Almost all Hollywood actors are transgender. Many politicians have clones. Clones have been in use for years. CERN's attempting to open a rift between the veils, or a black hole, to swallow the whole entire universe. Chemtrails contain nanoparticles which cause Morgellons. AIDS was a disease caused by the government. Vaccines are killing us and causing ailments and cancers. TV itself causes electromagnetic radiation cancer, plus cell phones. 5G terror. At any time, the New Madrid fault line could go. Cascadia could go. Any of the volcanoes in the country could go. Yosemite, the supervolcano, could go. St. John's Divine Cathedral has sculptures on the pillars which describe the end of the world, complete with floods and destruction of buildings for New York City and all of it. What other conspiracies are there? Many, many dead doctors, many, many dead scientists, suspiciously dead astronomers. Changing climates, for sure. And then you have the government being non-responsive, completely warrior, not really for the people. If anything happens by the people, it's with great effort. All our voting machines are now electronic, completely manipulatable, not even worth it. Every television show comes from the same source, so every time they talk about a subject, all they do is mimic each other. They read from the same script. seen videos where they've shown the same exact speech come out of 4 different stations' mouths on the same day. I mean, conspiracies go as deep as it is because the distrust amongst our people for the government is at an all-time high at like 1,000,000%, not even 100. And so they're just waiting to put us in FEMA camps, that's all. They're hoping we'll just kill ourselves off, and then what we'll do is we'll essentially go against ourselves, and then we'll do it all for them, and they will have no problem. And what happens is, I'm surprised it wasn't a racial thing in Vegas. They could have easily thrown some racism in there and made it, because every time we do something, we react, and you can't do that. It's one of my favorite Simpsons episodes was Lisa met a guy who did all these commercials, jingles. Probably a famous guy. I forget his name. It wasn't Mel Torme, but anyway. So anyway, they're attacking the town, these giant billboards. And, you know, every billboard's a company, and it's a thing, and it has all these jingles. And so, essentially, he says, don't give them any of your energy, and they will fall down. And it took, you know, like, everybody's will to really get into it, but ultimately, that was the cure. You had to turn your back. And so, by turning your back, you are not giving them energy. They're kind of like trying to rattle the cage and say, look at me, you know, I'm a fucking fucker. I have horrors, I have lots of money, I have things, and you're supposed to go, oh, that's amazing. But instead, I mean, secretly, hopefully, if you have any type of brain, you're like, that's pathetic. That's annoying. So anytime you have this situation like Vegas or Sandy Hook or Columbine or any of these places, they're distractions. They're not distractions because they're over in China doing something. They're distractions from keeping you stable. What they're doing is they're putting people who are posting different videos and they're conflicting each other. And so their job is done, whether it happened or not. Whether any of these places ever happened, you've been divided. And so you've got to probably try to break free from that a tiny bit. It's funny for me because I don't really watch the news. I mean, if I catch it, I catch it. So I get a filtered form of the news anyway from the people on the internet. Whatever, all these other channels that I watch, and you watch them too. It doesn't really matter. But I'm not really interested in the news. I'm interested in the vibration of what people are thinking about the news. Because ultimately, unless it's news of a meteor crashing into my house, then I don't really feel like it's going to be relevant. You know, there is going to come a time where martial law and those things happen. I mean, ultimately, they are going to install enough police state mechanisms that you won't be able to do anything without permission. And so that's where it's headed. Microchips, digital money, no real money. This is where it's all going. The lack of guns. I live in New Hampshire. It's a damn good thing because we like guns. I don't have guns, but I mean, people like guns. We're happy about them. We're respectful about them. They want to take them. And so when you start getting into the Vegas situation, it's really about guns. They want to fucking take your guns. They want to take your life, actually, if they can. They're going to take your property. They're going to take your liberty. Harvey and all that, the reason we're afraid of that is because every time a fucking city falls, it takes 50 years to rebuild the city, and then ultimately Actually, they don't rebuild the city. What am I fucking talking about? Katrina, those people are still homeless. Every time we have a house down in the south, it never gets built. These people are getting transported away. I'm not saying they're getting killed, but their fucking lives are ruined. And that is totally purposeful by the government. They love it. They love by the Agenda 21 prospect to stick everyone in cities and leave the wild to itself, and then have you suffering in the city where you can't make any fucking money and you're just an asshole. And that's where it's going. Welcome to 2050. We got to start getting things turned around and start dismantling these cities and dismantling the use of airplanes and cars and things that pollute. And because we have no reason to travel like that. We are just all local beings. And if we can figure out another way to do it, we really ought to. For ourselves spiritually, not even just for the planet. So, but they're going to do something different because in Agenda 21, they just want to wipe us. They're going to go in their bunkers and they're going to fucking hide out, and then they're going to let us kill each other off. And we could only hope for God to intercede with Wormwood, but most likely they're impatient and they're going to do it with a nuke, or they're going to do it with submarines, or they're going to do, they're going to hand us over to the North Koreans, and they say, oh, well, they're attacking us. Nobody fucking hates us. What have we done? We're not all that great of a country, but I mean, to be attacked? It's not about that. These people have been plotting this shit. It's written about in Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. She was the girlfriend of one of the Rothschilds, and she wrote a book about how the elite are going to fucking collapse the economy and then fucking just implode the whole system. While they hang out in some private place, and then we go savage, they're going to come in and clean us up. And then they'll have a whole continent to themselves again. And this is where we're creeping, even if they could accomplish it. That is the utopia of civilization. It's not godly. It's very savage and it's very dystopian. It wants to consume you. It has no place for you. Eventually, thanks to AI, we're not even necessary. They've created AI that can eat human flesh, any type of carbon-based flesh, plants, and make energy. Well, that's very dystopian. Thank you. So I try not to worry about that, even though that is the mindset of humanity in its laziness. Thank you. My son's sweatshirt says slothy. In our slothiness, we're making things in a police state to watch us because we can't trust ourselves. Where do you go from there? But I have said that, in a utopian heaven state, you would, if you were a good being, you wouldn't worry about being watched. I could be being watched by something I don't know. That's not why I try to be good. That would be paranoia. I try to be good and think that God is watching me. So, ultimately, God is my big brother who is kind of like, don't do that. Just don't do that. Don't even think that. You know what I mean? And so that's what keeps me straight. Kind of like I'm going to be put into at the very end of the world, I'm going to be put into a court, and then they're going to go, well, now you have to watch your whole life in front of everybody. And they're going to go, why did you do that? You thought you were alone, so that was cool. And, but I go there sometimes, but that's not what it's about, So ultimately, I try not to give these things that energy because the government, that word, governmental, they don't govern your mind, but they never trained you how to be yourself. And so you need to be able to be your own being and discern that that's not their job. Their job is to work with other countries. And unfortunately, most people aren't raised around any type of don't know, it is almost like a military training, but like a philosophy which would give you discernment. Christianity tries. Meeting Jesus Christ would probably bring you there a little better. But if you don't have that discernment to figure out why, I mean, it seems hard to imagine that some greater body of people is against us. But it is. It's completely against us, and it's completely trying to divert you from being a healthy being who's in search of God and finding God, type of thing. You know what I mean? I mean, I love the conspiracies myself, but they're all just, there's a great line in the Bible somewhere where it says, be careful what you lend your ear to hear. And so I try to make art out of them. This is my new picture for the week. And so I try to make something out of it, you know what I mean? And then ultimately I could burn it or whatever. But you know, it's just, it's fascinating. There's clearly something going on in Vegas. But like I said, it's Sin City. It's despotism at its best. It's a brothel, I think. As far as I recall, it's all legal there. I wouldn't say that's God's judgment, but like I say, the elite like to rush judgment. And so what I saw was just that they're really they're laughing because they're kind of watching us divide ourselves, talk about it, disagree, be confused. And once you're confused, you're no good to nobody, right? And so don't make any bold statements, you know what I mean? Sorry about my video about the country music critique, but I mean, it's what it made me feel like. It's that it's absurd to worry. And it's also absurd to have an opinion within 2 days of an event of that magnitude. If that's real, it's a very solemn day in American history. With that aside, everyone's totally allowed to process it and dissolve it in their mind and think of what the fuck just happened. And so, but ultimately, here's my departing remark. It's just, don't give it the type of energy where it makes you emotional, and focus more on what's important to you. Your days were always numbered on Earth, and life can seem very intense, but it's just because now we've made things very complicated. And so things will seem doubly intense. And just not give it an immediate energy. And I wouldn't know if you call it skepticism, but just don't even give it that feeling like it's this or that. Just let it sit. They would like you to think that's a big event. And death is always a big event, but ultimately, people always die. But ultimately, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, the before, the middle, and the after of all things, conquered death and was raised again in glory. Was seated at the right hand of the Father. Is all things. And think of that before you worry about whether Vegas really happened and lots of people were randomly murdered by a millionaire out on a random vacation. Because if everybody's flipping out, then the story wasn't very well written. And that's just the moral. So I wouldn't get too snubbed about it. It's another narrative in our lives, and I'm sure a very bright person could see the pattern that lies through all of these narratives and say, oh, well, we are in a biblical place. But I had written down earlier, and that's, kind of the funny thing, was the 923. It was very disappointing to people, but it shouldn't be. Well, first of all, you're still alive. It's great. Life is to be cherished and enjoyed. Your moment of existence, wherever it can be, it's a good thing. So, the part of the Bible that I enjoyed, which kind of referred to that whole concept, was, it's a wicked generation that seeks for a sign. So, and believe me, I'm not a giant Bible reader or whatever, but when I hear a good statement, I can wrap my mind around it. And why would you look for a sign? So don't, because Jesus comes like a thief in the night, and so your days are always numbered. Tomorrow, look at my head. It's not a smiley face. I bashed my head today. I could have hit an artery and died in the garage of some person's house who wasn't around. Not very likely. Try to always cherish every day and try to make something really good of it. And if you're really passionate about either restoring our government or restoring your life, whatever, do it. Just grab by the saddle and jump up and ride it. I'm very satisfied by a very low profile existence where I can look around me and I'm not overly dissatisfied. Like I said, I love conspiracies. I do believe in Jesus Christ. I do believe there's a redemption and an eternal life, and that he conquered death already. So I don't really fear all this stuff. You know what I mean? My wife does yoga. I'm not mad at her. That's a journey she has to take before she discovers Jesus Christ. This is life. It's what you make of it. It's what you do of it. It's the best thing you can do is not really tell people what they have to do with it, if you can help it. Maybe just cast some opinion across the table, and hopefully some of it jives, and you're like, yeah. And some of you are like, whoa, I never thought of that. But, I see a lot of my favorite channels are kind of just, well, we're at a point where we're treading water, like Pizzagate, and these things have been around, and we all know, we're like, oh, it's too much, there's pedophiles everywhere, and Satanists everywhere, and bankers everywhere, and it's like, yeah. So that's an interesting point. I started making a channel much too late to enjoy any of the fame of the early channels, so I'm not even worried about it. It's a time to share. Like, what do you do? What are you making? What are you creating? What are you thinking? Where are we going? There's a lot of stagnant energy right now that needs to be pushed out into the universe, and there's a lot of people not doing anything. And I don't mean like little things. I mean like, if we were so evolved, where have we gone past toilet paper? The greatest invention ever. Just believe me, if you weren't using toilet paper, I wouldn't be hanging out with you. And so we have a lot to live up to, and we've done nothing. And I'm guilty too. I've been taking care of business and taking care of myself. And so when it comes to these government things that we have to deal with, which is these people have been given jobs and great honors, and lots of money, and they are basically robbing us blind because we aren't watching them. Now they've banned it all together because they know if they get caught, they're going to go to jail, and they're trying to fucking kill us. The Clinton clan and all those people, they'd rather kill us than get caught. And they're always plotting against us. And so, give this Vegas thing 3 weeks, nobody will remember it. And we always have this North Korea problem to deal with, right? Perfect excuse for some type of problem. And, you know, I hope it's not New York City. I hope it's nowhere. But I know they're capable of doing that, and people have been dreaming of it. I don't know if that's paranoia, but the collective consciousness is burning on there's a bigger event. I don't know if it's them blowing Yellowstone or... There's a lot of... I mean, I think it ironic that God said in the Bible that he would never end the world the way he did, especially out of that wrath, but like the way he did the first time. And I kind of suspect that's because we're going to do it to ourselves. And we're scripted into doing it ourselves. I mean, we have Fukushima, still a major problem. Chernobyl actually is still a problem. We just capped it. It never stopped being a problem. All these nuclear generators, if they're real, big problem. In 1980, when I was in 8th grade, they told us we could blow up the world 50,000 times with the amount of nuclear warheads between Russia and America. True? Not even provable. If it's true, it's called megadeath. And we're at an impasse with this type of reality where those things are they just cause mental sorrow and anguish. Can't do anything about those things. Can't do anything about Vegas. Can't do anything about Sandy Hook. Can't do anything about Hurricane Harvey. And they all stunk like a dead rat. I mean, the problem is we're waking up. Not me. I've been awake for a long time. Everybody's waking up. I mean, they fucking made movies about it. Eyes Wide Shut. You name it. The problem with the enemy is they can't help but brag about it, and they have no imagination. So what really happens is when they make a story, it's true for the most part. And so, I mean, there's distortion, and that's what happens, is they don't want to tell the whole truth, so they fucking make all these fake things go in with the truth, but they can't help but tell the truth. So if you look at all the narratives of Vegas, or the next great false flag, there's always a slide of the real truth. They have no imaginations. They can't make up anything. They can't create. And thank God, because then we can decipher what the fuck they're talking about, because we like to think they do it by a code of honor, but it's because the devil is a liar. And he can't make up anything. He's got no real existence. Everything that's happening is clearly biblical, because all the evil is anti-God. We have television shows called Lucifer. Why would that even happen if this wasn't real, and if this wasn't a real scenario? Why would you even bother? There's so many more fascinating mythologies of the Greeks and Plato and Socrates and all the ancient histories of Japan and China and India and all the books of India and wow. But you gotta just choose Christianity and make Hollywood, which is the magician's wand, all about the devil. Very suspicious to me. And it's all disgusting. American Horror Story, all these stories, Stranger from a Strange Land, whatever it was. They can't. That's because they have no imagination. So, what I recommend when you watch the news, don't really believe anything they say. Don't believe anyone on TV at all. Don't believe a lick of it. Don't. Just know that your food is being poisoned if you don't grow it. It's not a type of poison that will kill you. It's a type of poison that gives you cancer. And I had written it down and I was going to talk about it, but I mean, ultimately, Jesus was real. And the thing about him is he wasn't a consumer. He wasn't a consumer of food. He wasn't a big drunk. He wasn't smoking butts. He's a lot like the monks and the Buddhist monks and the Indian monks, and that's why people have gotten confused and thought maybe he went to India. When you get into a holy nature, and those people were very holy. They weren't as holy as Jesus, but they touched on it. They wanted nothing to do with reality. The more they prayed, the more they fasted, the less they wanted to eat, the less they wanted to partake of sex, the less they wanted to partake of the, well, I guess ultimately if they became illuminated, they said, it's Maya, it's illusion. So why would I want to hurt my hand on illusion when I can just sit perfectly still and be a part of the universe? So Jesus wasn't very far from that in the fact that he fasted and he rarely, I mean, what his partaking of reality was about was illuminating you and making you aware of what was going on. So, and that's very God-absorbed and very self-absorbed. And I think if he existed today, he would be like, well, you'd be a lot happier if you, dare I say, read some New Testament, because they're pretty good stories, the parables, as opposed to watching some news where you really are just going to get fed some shit. You're going to get fed the filth of the jinn, of Satan himself, happy little stories of bullshit or vaccines, or you're never going to get any truth that any of the truthers have had to scrape through the muck to even get a little bit of, and people have been apparently dying to spit out medical things that are going on, and doctors are being killed for attempting alternative medicine. That type of thing, you're never going to get that. So I would encourage you to watch it guardedly, if at all. It's really just fodder, I guess. It's fill in. If you want to be a part of society, it's there for you. Unfortunately, if you want to be a maverick and if you want to have your own life, you're going to do a little research. You're going to have, but I wouldn't recommend getting too crazy on it. The answer is pretty clear that I can make up the type of research that will prove a facsimile of the truth, just like you can. And so, I have like this great book, William Blake, painted him on my car. It's called An Illuminist. He was a poet and an artist, but you know what? He didn't know the truth. There's a form of the truth that you can attain, and then you will feel like you are one with the universe. But depending on how you attach to that idea, you're more likely to become legion with the devil, who is also pushing this idea. So it's not through or without great trial that you would ever come to an understanding of that type of thing where it made any practical use. You know what I mean? It's not, but it is worth pursuing. There are great books out there. There are great thinkers, and you take them all with a grain of salt. But you learn things, and the Bible was not the only great book written, but it perhaps is the greatest book written. Because it's generally about abstaining from reality, and so ultimately, the more books you read, the more filled with thoughts your head's going to be. And I think what most people seek is less thoughts, less distractions, less confusion. And so it can go both ways. But that is up to you. Like you're going to have to find your seat in the throne of the universe where you can smile and say, because we are all God's children, and even he said in the Bible, does it not say in your book that ye are all God's? We are all divine, and we've all fallen, most likely on purpose, to know the other experience, so to speak. So, but you have to bring yourself back up. You can't. This is not going to come from a book. I've read a lot of books. It's not in there. But there is a point where your compassion will turn from inward to outward, and you will perceive why Jesus was able to consider everyone worth salvation, and why everyone was equal to him, and a part of the kingdom of heaven if they chose to be and chose to accept his wisdom. He was the Word. And so, I look at the stories, and then it is fascinating because we live in this existence where people have written stories, and they tend to lend towards what's going around. But you got to understand that the guy from Vegas and the people in Vegas have all read Stephen King and all these different books and watched all these different movies and grew up listening to the same music. So we're all caught in, I don't want to say Matrix, but something of that nature or a fractal, where we all are, we're all aware of the Bible. We can't help but fulfill prophecy because it's all a part of our existence. Whether it's in an anti-state or a positive state. And we're all going to be guilty of that because we all hope for it or we all hate it. And so, the Vegas thing, that was a little Egypt. That's not irony. That's what's going on in reality. And so, taking responsibility for your own life and your own view and your own relationship with the God that we all connect with directly will make it easier to not be so distracted by television. You can entertain yourself all you want, but when you have an emotional response that causes you to want to react, I feel really bad for racism and Black Lives Matter and the people in Syria and all the refugees. But there's a great line from Jesus when Judas is saying, well, we could have gotten more silver for the poor. And Jesus says, well, they'll always be poor. You can't worry forever for humanity. That isn't, when he's asking you to be compassionate, it's not about that. But they certainly pull your heartstrings on television when it comes to there's going to be a big to-do for all these dead people, I guarantee it. Whether it's at a fucking football game, at the president's, the White House. All these people are going to go to the White House like they did for Obama. All the Sandy Hook kids went to, or the parents or whoever went to the White House. It's a big to-do. It's black magic. In the sense that it's going to manipulate your mind to have a feeling about that. Don't let them do that. You be the controller. You're much more powerful than them. Laugh when you see that stuff. Half the time I watch TV, all I see is everything's for sale for $9.99. $9.99. $666. What can you do with that except for laugh? I like to be entertained, so I just don't take it seriously. It's not going to change my heart. I'm already beyond that, let's just say. I do have worries on a daily basis because I'm an instinctual being, and ever since 9/11, I watch the sky when a plane goes over. Not perfect, but I do find it that they're feeding you a narrative always, and so you have to be careful. And if we can be lucky, we can start fucking feeding the universe a different narrative and get rid of these people, pardon my swear, where, see, I got emotional, where they can be done with. But I do think that that's partly to the satisfaction of the resolution of Jesus Christ that will happen, and something that we will just have to suffer is the continued abuse that this system will, it's Babylon, so it offers you nothing. It offers you illusion. There's nothing to grasp. It's just going to go away. It brings dissatisfaction the closer you try to grab it. And so, and I have a guitar. I love my guitar, but I mean, I also know that when I leave here, there will be no guitar. Will there be one in heaven? I seriously doubt it. I don't think that's what heaven is at all. I don't believe it's about your fantasies and your joys. I don't believe it's about worshiping Jesus all day either. I just think that you become one with God, and Brian Murray will cease to exist, and there will be peace for Brian, because instead of burning away, I will be refined, and that's about all I can imagine on that concept. And even if I were to burn away into nothing, I don't feel like I'd be all that disappointed. I try to enjoy this existence. I feel like I'm somehow responsible for it, in the sense that as a fallen angel, I chose to be here, and so I try to, by looking forward to redeeming myself, feel like it's not hopeless that I'm stuck here. And if that's possible, then I'm okay. And if that's a delusion, that's okay too, because I'm not really caught up in the fact that we live on the verge of megadeath, and there are possibly countries who want to destroy us, and the government's out to get me, and those things all may be true, but I can't do anything about them. I mean, I'm so poor as a joke, broke, stupid, that they know right where I am. They've got me right where they want me, drawing whenever I want, doing the things I want, which is ironic, because if that's what they want me to do, then we're in agreement. It's not that bad. I wouldn't find having billions of dollars to be the resolution to what I wanted to come here and do. I've pretty much accomplished what I wanted to do. I have a nice little family, and I have a son named Osiris, my wife Jess, and we have a cute little place, and I do art. And I discovered Jesus Christ, which complements my thoughts on philosophy wholly. So it feels like the government doesn't really offer anything, and so therefore I would say that's a good thing, because it shouldn't. But it will probably try soon. It will probably try to. I mean, and I think that's the fear of everyone's, the government and religion joining. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it did, it would probably be some type of terrible event for sure. But you need to be strong in your relationship with God and yourself, and on your own terms, and ignore what people say. I can only lead you towards Jesus. Jesus means something different to everybody. But because Jesus is all about turning the other cheek, and clothing, and protecting, and feeding, and guarding, and honoring, then that should be the God that you're looking for. The redemptive type. The one who would die for you and save you from death. I've checked out all the other gods. They're not offering anything better. And so I've chosen to stick there, and that's, to me, it's fine. It's fine. Like I said, but there is a bigger event coming. I don't know what it is. I can't discount the reality we live in and prophecies of the old, which say that this will end. So, what will it be? I can only marvel. I'm glad that I don't know. And you should be glad too, because ultimately, you would suffer that Cassandra complex where you just would want to tell people. And I so much better like the idea of Jesus coming like a thief in the night, so you should just be ready. Because only the devil would want that luxury of, well, I know when I should be redeemed. And so that makes it perfect too. You should never want to know, but you should know that all good things must come to an end. If you were able to even have a good time here. And I encourage you to, because it's not a bad thing. Where else can you get gashes on your head? Gray hair. I'm only 12. I got gray hair. I'm 48. But it looks like my iPad's about to die, friends. But as a closing remark, like I said, just don't get caught up in the world. Take time for yourself and your family, but mainly yourself, honestly. Not in a selfish way, but to hear your heart speak, to hear God speak. You have to kind of come into terms with how to be alone. And it makes life a lot easier. And if you can do that, I recommend it. Don't be... like I said, I watch TV. Unfortunately, for some people who are just now getting into this, I'm 48. I've been thinking about these things for a long time. I've been comfortable in my skin for a long time. Don't fall for the trap. It's a trap. That's the best that the enemy can do, is television and CGI and Project Bluebeam and all these great wonders, but they're just not. They're like fireworks. And then they fade. The real glory is not here on this earth, it's after. And what's important about this world is just that you can enjoy it if you can perceive that it's all a distraction. And it's fine after that. Anyway, I gotta go. My iPad's about to die. Thank you for joining me. Brian Murray, over and out.